Good evening, everyone. There being a quorum present and having been advised by the town clerk that the special town meeting warrant has been properly served, this meeting of the town of Plympton is now open. I'm your moderator, Brian Wick from Winnetoxet Road. Please remember to silence your phones at this time. And now I'll ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone should have received a revised article. If you have not received one and need one, you can get one at either of the teller stations. Tonight's meeting is being taped for broadcast by Area 58 Community Access Media. I'd like to thank Principal Venito and his custodial staff for setting up our meeting tonight. And now I'll introduce the folks that are at the front tables here. On my immediate left, we have our Town Council, John Eichman, Town Clerk, Tara Shaw, your Board of Selectmen, Mark Russo, John Trainer, and Chair Christine Joy. Oh, that's him. Sorry. Just regular old Christine Joy tonight. Chair John Trainer. And to my right, we have from our Finance Committee, Catherine Shepard, Marilyn Brown, and Stephen Lewis. You were checked in by our tellers, Patricia Detterman and Jill Palestine. Our peace officer, which we're not going to need, is Doug Mazzola. Here are some of the procedural rules that I'll be following tonight as moderator. We'll be following the rules that are outlined in the book, Town Meeting Time. Only after being recognized by the moderator may a member address the meeting. Speakers from the floor will be allowed up to 3 minutes. I am making an exception for that for some folks at the beginning who are going to help explain this in a bit more detail. All speakers need to approach the microphone at the center of the room, state your name and your address. This is especially important so we can hear you and people who watch this broadcast at home can hear your comments clearly. If you're unable to stand, let me know and we'll work something out for you. Anyone proposing any substantial amendments must be submitted in writing. All comments made tonight are made through me as moderator, and you do not direct any comments at any previous speakers or attendees. If anyone is not a registered voter in the town of Plympton, you need to be seated in one of these, in this front row on either side here. So any unregistered voters, please move to the front. And we have a few officials here who are not residents of the town of Plympton, but they need your permission should they wish to address the assembly. So at this time, I would entertain a motion that will allow the following people to participate tonight when and if appropriate. They are your Town Administrator, Elizabeth Dennehy, Town Council, John Eichman, and Town Accountant, Barbara Gomez. Second? Moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. It's time to start. Article 1, acquisition of the Atwood property.
Mr. Moderator, with great pleasure, I make the following motion. I move that the town vote, 1, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain upon such terms as conditions as the Selectmen deem appropriate, all that land described in the deed to Sarah E. Preston, trustee of the Atwood Family Irrevocable Trust, recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, Book 42557, page 105, and such interests in abutting lands as may be convenient to provide the access thereto, which land is located in part on Prospect Road, together with all easements and right appurtenant appurtenance thereto, and buildings and improvements located thereon, with approximately 10 acres of such land along Prospect Road in the location more or less depicted on the sketch plan prepared for the town, to be acquired for the general municipal purposes, including the purpose of conveyance, the remainder of which land and interest in abutting lands shall be acquired for open space, conservation, and passive recreation purposes, and held in the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission under provisions of General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8C, the entirety of such land having been made available for purchase by the town in accordance with the terms of a bona fide offer presented to the town pursuant to the provisions of GLC 61A, Section 14. 2. As funding for such acquisition in any and all costs related thereto, appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund Open Space Reserve the sum of $22,000, and from the Community Preservation Fund Undesignated Fund balance the sum of $298,000 for such acquisition. Authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow for such acquisition the sum of $470,000 in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes therefore, said sum to be expended under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, and further provided that any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any premium applied to the payment of costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with GLC 44, Section 20, thereby reducing by a like amount the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs, and appropriate and transfer from Community Preservation Fund Undesignated Fund balance the sum of $30,000 as a contingency fund for all costs related to such acquisition, including title investigation, closing costs, attorney fees, and the granting of a conservation restriction as required by GLC 44B, Section 12. 3. Authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary on behalf of the town to effect said acquisition, and to accept any gifts or grants provided the town for such purpose. 4. Authorize the Board of Selectmen upon such acquisition to sell the residential use upon such terms and conditions, and for such consideration as the Board of Selectmen shall deem appropriate, which may include division into no more than 3 lots, any portion of the land acquired for general municipal purposes, provided that a portion of such land shall be retained to provide public access to the land acquired for conservation and passive recreation purposes, including a small parking area and a path, and to provide for retention of a natural buffer between conservation land and the land sold. And 5, authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey a permanent conservation restriction on the portion of the property acquired for conservation and passive recreation purposes as required by GLC 44B, Section 12, and meeting the requirements of GLC Chapter 184, Sections 31 through 33.
Hearing a motion and a second, we will have discussion on this article, but I do want to point out that this does require a 2/3 vote. So keep that in mind as we hear these discussions. A 2/3 vote is required for passage.
Mr. Moderator, just a couple quick points. Thanks for sitting through that reading. The length of the motion actually is pretty instructive of the challenges, the complexity, and the level of detail needed to accomplish and actually bring a land project like this before town meeting. It's taken the effort of a whole bunch of people along the way. I believe this is a pretty amazing project on many levels, and after others have spoken, I'll have some more comments. But there are people we definitely need to hear from, and of the many people that have put in countless hours on this project, the one who's done the most is Linda Letty, the co-chair of the Open Space Committee. She's going to offer an overview of the project, and we are quite blessed to have her working on this, and quite blessed to have her presenting what is the hard work and the tireless efforts of many people.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Brian, and everyone else for being here. Okay, let's try this again. Maybe. Can we
Maybe
get it up?
go up a little bit.
Hello, hello, hello. How's that?
Sounds better. Remember to tell us who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, okay, I'm Linda Letty from 44 West Street. And thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mark, for that great introduction. And thank you all for coming. We are thrilled to have this kind of a turnout. So thank you very much. What I'm going to do is take a few minutes right now to summarize what Mark has described over the last 6 months. We've had a lot of work to do to make sure that we would get to this point, or even to decide if we wanted to get to this point. So without going into all that detail, I'll provide you a summary of some of the outcomes that we've arrived at. But I must say, coming over here today, or tonight, one of the first things I was thinking was how appropriate that this is a special town meeting, because we're here for a special opportunity, and we have to decide to preserve a special place. So I sort of love that this is a special town meeting, because this whole thing is really special in and of itself in terms of the opportunity we have and the land that we're talking about. So just to remind everyone here, this special place is 113 plus acres of forests, wetlands, hills, and brooks that are off Prospect Road that are now known as the Atwood Bogs. This area has been identified by the Massachusetts Natural Heritage Program as being among the top 20% of the most environmentally healthy and important areas in the state, and among the top 3 in southeastern Massachusetts. Why? Because this land helps protect and maintain healthy drinking water, provides important natural filters for air and water pollutants, is home to a broad array of plant and animal species that thrive there, including species of special conservation concern, and has intact, abundant river, aquatic, and forest habitats that are not widely found throughout the state. In addition to these benefits, the Two Brooks area, which is what we're now calling it, will provide public access for a variety of passive recreation and environmental education experiences. So the question for tonight is, how can we make this happen, and how can we pay for it? The first step in making this happen will occur tonight when you hopefully vote yes to purchase the Two Brooks Preserve. The price is $800,000. $330,000 of that is coming from community preservation funds, and $470,000 will come from a short-term bond that will be sold for no more than 3 house lots on Prospect Avenue, and to purchase the remaining land. You will note in the figures that Mark just read, and I'm sure you all picked up on this, that we really are just asking for $320,000 tonight from community preservation funds, because we had to give $10,000 as a deposit in July. So the money that you're voting on tonight is the remaining $790,000 of the $800,000. The warrant also includes $30,000 for a required contingency fund from the Community Preservation Committee to cover related expenses, including a conservation restriction that we will eventually have to arrange and get applied. In addition to the town funds, contributions from individuals, foundations, and corporations are integral to the project's success. Private funds expand our financial capacity and our ability to respond to the needs and opportunities that may arise, including securing at least 1 lot to be used for public access in the front recreational area. Private funds also enable us to pay related project costs that may come up including interest on the payment of the bond. And by having private funds contributing to the project, we are planning for, expect no impact whatsoever on the tax rate. We don't want it. We have no intention of seeing that happen. This will not have an interest on your tax rate, and we don't think it'll hit any municipal funds at all. The private fundraising goal for the next 12 months to achieve that is at least a minimum of $175,000. I'm delighted to report that as of today, we have $93,000 of that in hand. And of that, a lot of you who made that happen are sitting all around here. But I particularly want to call out that of that $93,000, a third of it was raised just this past weekend by the new Friends of Plympton group, which sponsored a terrific barn dance and a fundraiser at Reunion Farm. Yes, I hope a lot of you are there. Absolutely, it's exciting. So in 2016, in response to an open space plan survey of residents, residents ranked protecting our water supply and preserving Plympton's rural character as our top priorities. Both of those scored in the 90% return rates. People really care about those two things. By voting tonight to purchase Two Brooks Preserve and contributing your time, talents, and support to the fundraising campaign over the next year, residents will be taking an important step towards making those dual goals a reality. So thank you for listening. I'll be glad to answer any questions along the way, and thank you all again for supporting it and for coming out tonight. This is a meaningful way to start this. Thank you.
Anybody else? No?
I'm Franny Walsh. I live at 41 West Street. I've been out to the Atwood property, and it's beautiful. It has, it's a very varied landscape with brooks and hills and a lot of forestry. There's buffer zones for the water to protect our water. There's a lot of interesting wildlife out there. And to me, it's important to hand something off to the next generation that's coming along. I have a personal story. I lived in the summers for 4 months out of the year completely off the grid on 17 acres in what's known as the Crow's Pasture in East Dennis. The land ended up being sold into conservation after my grandfather passed away. And we took our baths and ponds. We had no power, and we lived that way, and we loved it. And the fact that I can still go there today to see this property and connect to it is important. And that was for me that my grandfather was able to give that to me and my siblings. And I would kind of like to try to emulate that here for the next generation coming along, so they have a place to go that's safe, that they can enjoy nature and connect to it in a way that I was able to do well, I still can. So I just think that it's important for us to look forward to ourselves and protecting water and doing the things that are going to currently impact us, but also what is going to be meaningful and impactful for the next generation coming down the road. And also, when we take from nature, at some point we have to stop and we have to return back to it. and this is a great opportunity for us to do that. We all enjoy turning on our water, and water comes out of our tap, and most of us are on wells, and this is helping to safeguard that for our generation and the generations to come.
Jen McDonald?
Hi, Jennifer MacDonald, 158 Main Street. I actually first came to know this land when we were restoring a house on Prospect Road, and I have to say that it's an incredible piece of property back there. The brooks and the wildlife and the forest that's there. It's just something once in a lifetime chance for opportunity for us to come together. I did want to say it's incredible to see so many people here tonight, and incredible to see so many people at the barn dance on Saturday. There were so many new faces and familiar faces there. The outpouring to come out to support this land, and I just want to note that because the energy around supporting this was incredible, and it was also a wonderful creative way to raise funds to support this, and I think we could do more of that as a community. I know there's some people that are very concerned about the taxes, and speaking as a realtor, I've seen this time and time again when areas get overdeveloped, the resale value of your house goes down, and actually your taxes go up. It might not have a short-term effect, but the long-term effect is that the services, there's more demand on the services in the town, there's more demand on the infrastructure in the town. Also, another interesting fact is, I didn't know if you all knew this, but Plympton is one of the towns where there's actually the lowest percentage of conservation land in the state. So it's amazing to know that because it feels like a very rural town, and if you want to keep Plympton, it would be amazing to restore, or not restore this, but save this land and preserve it and conserve it. So I, of course, am here to support this, and I hope everyone else is too. Thank you.
Alan Wheelock? Alan?
I'll just be the killjoy of the night being your moderator. It's not typical to clap after everyone speaks, especially if someone speaks and is not in favor of it. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, so maybe just hold applause to the
Brian,
end.
did you have to say that just before I speak?
I'm sorry, you had your big chance.
Thank you. To echo what Jen just said, there's 1,000 households in this town these days, and I've lived here for 42 years, so it's a lot from my perspective. But for most of those households are owner-occupied homes. So that means that for most of us, the most important financial asset that you own is your home. And a project like this, in my opinion, will do more to preserve and enhance that asset than almost anything else you can do. Thank you.
That's right.
So I'm still Mark Russo, but I'm going to put on for a moment my chair of the Community Preservation Committee hat and just remind special town meeting that this project went through the usual Community Preservation Act process. An application was made by the Open Space Committee. The Community Preservation Committee solicited input from town boards, committees, commissions. We held the required public hearing, many meetings, which culminated in the Community Preservation Committee voting unanimously to recommend this project to town meeting. So now I'll take off that cap and just be a selectman again for a moment. Actually, really just be a citizen again for a moment. So we've heard about the benefits of this project. We understand that it will protect natural resources, particularly water, habitat. We understand that it'll preserve open space. We understand that it creates a new recreational and educational area. But there's, I think, a somewhat subtler benefit that's sort of been hinted at or actually said rather explicitly tonight. And I think that this project and the way it's put together is an incredible model for future projects, especially in this town. We are a tiny town. We're a town of modest means. We fervently love and want to maintain the rural and agricultural nature of the town, but that takes time and money. And at the same time, taking money, we are all acutely aware of the burden of the tax rate and the importance of minimizing or excluding any tax impact whatsoever. And I think that's where this project's kind of really magical. We put together funding from multiple funding sources, not unlike what we did at Cato's Ridge, and put together in a way where the strong likelihood is that will be absolutely no tax impact on anyone in town. Equally, doing this in a tax-efficient way, we're also doing it in a way where much of the labor is done by volunteers. We're a little tiny town. We do not have a professional planner. We have a lot of positions in town that are part-time, so a lot of the work gets done by volunteers in town, and we've had so many volunteers working so hard on this project. The little side benefit of that is the sense of community that comes out of this. I think that showed up at the barn dance. It showed up tonight. It showed up in the excitement around this project. When we did Cato's Ridge, all the work was done by volunteers. We have the expectation that this new project equally will be done by volunteers. That's beautiful because it saves money, but it's even more beautiful by the ownership that is generated by that. Little tiny town, we love this town. The shared responsibility to preserve this town is what this project is all about. So very appreciative of the efforts of everyone here and very appreciative of everyone being here tonight and listening to what we've had to say so far.
Anybody else wish to comment? Last chance. Back, yes.
Good evening. My name's Art Moran from Granville Baker Way in Plympton. And I think it's laudable what everyone has done here tonight, and I agree with the project. I have one concern, and that is I don't want to see 1 cent of impact on our taxes. Now, we've all dealt in real estate, and hopefully the real estate market will keep going and everything will be just fine. But I would like to see some sort of a guarantee that if all the lots don't sell, or there's anything that nothing impacts our tax rate in this town, that it comes, CPC can pick up the shortfall until the bonds are sold. As Linda Letty said, 0 impact on the tax rate. That's my concern. It always has been all these years. I think everyone's work was, a tremendous amount of work has gone into it. But in the worst-case scenario, I don't want to see the tax rate impacted. So I would like to see something in writing, an addendum or whatever, that the money will come from funds raised, donations, wherever, just not impacting the tax rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Art, because Art raises an important point, and so did Mark. I thought both of you touched on the sort of the nature of the town here, that we're small and we treasure what we have. We don't have a lot of extra money, and so anything that even might affect the tax rate at all is of paramount importance. And you're right that we had this in mind right from the get-go. Once we were starting to look at this, it became available in April. One of the first things we looked at is it even worth considering buying this? So we did 3 things in fairly short order. One was we hired an appraiser to make sure the price of the land was suitable, and of course it was. And secondly, to do a sort of sub-analysis of looking at the merits of selling some of the land up front, what the price would be, how saleable that would be, and looking at comparables. The result of that work from the appraiser and in subsequent discussions we've had with him is extremely positive. Art's right. I mean, we never know what's around the corner in terms of national or world politics or whatever. But barring anything calamitous, talking to that appraiser and some consulting real estate people, they feel these are extremely desirable lots. And the price range that we got from the appraiser was at around 145 to 150. Apparently that's still holding up. We checked again 2 weeks ago. That price is, if anything, maybe a little bit low. People feel that these lots are going to sell. The bond is for, if we choose to do it, the bond can be renewed for 3 times. We can go 3 years on a bond, and it's a bond with a low interest rate. And we hope not to do that, I'll be honest. We would really not have to, we'd like not to bond more than once. But the point is that we would have 3 years in a cycle, if we had to, at relatively low cost, to see if we had to keep moving it, keeping it on the market or whatever. But so number 1, number 2, we looked at any questions about the water quality for selling any houses. Those of you who attended the hearing know that there's absolutely no concern about that. The water's abundant, it's clean, and this hydrogeologist, who's an expert who works with bonding agencies, said again it was a very desirable location. And then third, again, if you were at the hearing, we had an ecological consultant coming in who said the same thing from a different point of view. So this is not a direct response to Art saying what specific response do we have, but we have thought about it, and 3 years from now is we don't have specific plans for 3 years from now. We think it's extremely unlikely that we would have to come back to town meeting or, in some way work with the selectmen at that point to pay some money towards this. If it ever gets to that point, we'll be talking to everyone a year and a half or so ahead of time, or 2 years if there's something happening to the economy. But right now, all the signs are people knocking at our door. We're going to get things going. We're going to have some options in the next year, and we'll have to decide how to use them. So there is time that we have 3 years before it would even begin to possibly hit the tax rate, and that is a long time from now, and we think it's unlikely we will come to have to face that particular question. And then there would be options. Then there would be ways that it didn't hit the tax rate that we could talk about. But right now, we're just all speed ahead with the tactics we have, including private fundraising. So.
Any other questions, comments? Yes.
Harry Weichel, 68 Center Street. Just one question. The lots that are to be sold, I presume there's 60,000 square foot lots. That's what you're figuring on? At the moment. Yes. At the moment. Do we know whether that land will sustain a normal septic system, or would mounted systems be needed? And if a mounted system is needed, that's 5 acres.
Again, from the preliminary work that's been done, and this, after tonight, we'll be digging into this in more detail, so to speak. But there was a previous potential buyer had done work out there, and it perks extremely well. So we are working with the follow-up consulting agency and surveyors who did that. But no, there's no indication at all of a need for 5 acres.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing no hands, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of, and remember, this is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Article 1 as read, please raise your right hand. Down hands. Those opposed? Passes by 2/3. No, I can declare it. Yep. Thank you, everybody. Amazing turnout. I hope to. I'm going to hopefully see all of you at Springtown meeting, because this was a great turnout. Don't forget about this night. And now I need to adjourn the meeting. Have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Those opposed? We're adjourned.